this class. This is like an intro to IT and esports class. It's our first pilot with this. I have our group of students here. We've been going through like 14 days of talking about IT topics as well as esports topics, and I really wanted to kind of draw everything back to careers as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And on top of this group, I have invited our Discord channel to come in and watch some of these too. So I'm streaming there too for them to participate. But the idea is to just kind of get a better understanding of how you got to where you are from where they're kind of sitting today, where we're just about to get into high school, or we're in high school starting to consider college or other alternative routes, as well as kind of like, what does some of your daily responsibilities look like? I know I tried to look up your Twitter bio before coming into this, and you're like, you got like 5 different things in there. You look like Mother of Dragons, Breaker of Chains, Freer. Like, so it was kind of impressive to see all those different hats that you wear across different areas. So, and then looking just kind of in general, like, what kind of advice do you have for this next up and coming group who's looking to potentially go into this for either a first career or long-term career? So, I guess we'll just kind of start with the background, right? Like, how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. So, hi guys. My name is Booker. I work at Generation Esports. It's one of those few esports jobs that actually has its own office. You can kind of see behind me. And yeah, I got into esports kind of around what you're talking about right now, and it was League of Legends. I had a buddy, I was a freshman in high school, and I had a buddy talk to me and he says, hey, it'd be really cool if we had a League of Legends club, right? And I said, yeah, you know what, that'd be really cool. We were playing a little bit of League of Legends on the side with a couple buddies, playing in some of the high school tournaments. I think it was Star League at the time, CSL Star League. And I said, let's do it. So I went and made a petition. I'm like, let's make an esports club. And I got 120 signatures from students at my school. And I was like in a small high school in Macomb, Illinois. So it's there you go. Not too many big things. We were the big city around, but it's not that too big of a high school. But yeah, there was a lot of students at the time that were signing, and we had an after school meeting just to kind of get everybody involved with it and just say, hey, this is what esports is and stuff. And the room was packed. We were using our math teacher's like a classroom at the time, and it was all the way out the door with so many people wanting to get into esports. And so we had an esports club for a little bit, and that's kind of like my first introduction. And through that, we went and it was student ran, so I was in charge of people who were captaining teams. We had a CS:GO team, we had a TF2 team, Team Fortress 2 way back in the day. I feel very old saying that one.
You'd be surprised how many emails I still get about seeing if we could add TF2 to our title list. So
hey, I love TF2. I was actually at this time I was playing it competitively as well, so I was on a competitive roster. This was after I transitioned from League of Legends. And I found out during this time, this is kind of like a big thing. I found out that I was really into more of the managerial aspect of esports. A lot of people want to be players and stuff, and I'm okay at games. I'm a big shooters guy. I was a big Call of Duty player as well. And unfortunately, I think at a point somebody has to helm the ship, right? And so during the time I was running the club, I was also running LAN parties. We do after night LAN parties at one of our local churches. So we have 120 people come in and play games all night long. We have tournaments and stuff like that. And that was a lot of fun. The time came to actually bring it to the school board to be an official club, and we wanted to be in a team. That was our big thing. We wanted to be a varsity team under athletics. And unfortunately, the school board at the time, and this was 2016, I think, it was around 2016, 2017, they were not for it, unfortunately. And so I took the club, and I ended up leaving around this time. I took the club, and I created my own nonprofit, which was the Macomb Esports Association. And through that, I was kind of running tournaments through the nonprofit itself. And so we ran local tournaments to try to help disenfranchised youth. We had a Call of Duty league. So we had local businesses sponsor amateur teams, just like people, it was a bunch of high schoolers that were making their own teams. And we get one of them was Buffalo Wild Wings, right? And so we'd stream that up, and that was really cool. They'd play it at the Buffalo Wild Wings itself. And have all the other sports bars fight against each other through proxy teams. And this was kind of I really put my toes into the industry. because for a bit when you're running tournaments and just like interacting with your very small space, especially in like a small town that I was, you don't really understand or like can't really see the scope of like the larger esports sphere. And so this is around the time that I started traveling a lot more, went to Chicago and St. Louis, and that's like, you know, when I was younger, I was traveling a bit. My competitive history, I also ran a Magic the Gathering team for a while. I was a little bit of a nerd. And so I was used to the traveling before this, and this is when I got into esports, that's when I really started getting into Smash Brothers, and I was a Smash Brothers tournament organizer. And so that's what I really was traveling. So I helped run some of the bigger tournaments that were happening in Chicago and St. Louis at the time. Smash Out 2018, I think was the first one, and then that would have been Midwest Mayhem series. And I then during like up until I was doing this for my nonprofit up until around quarantine, when I fully transitioned into collegiate coaching. So that was my first like big boy job with esports. Up until this point, it was all freelancing. You know, you go paycheck to paycheck, doing, you know, making sure you have enough gas money to pay for the next gig to go work it. And that's kind of you're talking about non-traditional, right? When it comes to college. So I did the first semester in community. I did my first I think I did my first year and a half in community college. I ended up leaving it to do esports full time. It's a path that is doable, but I would not recommend for everybody. It was awful for a bit. But you learn a lot when you are in that sort of thing. When esports has to be the way that you're making rent and things, you sleep on a lot of couches. You know, I felt like you hear about like touring bands sometimes. You know, so I felt kind of like that. You know, you go from one place to another, just like couch hopping. But it was a lot of fun up until that point. And finally, right when quarantine happened around like 2020, I got into collegiate coaching. So I was the head coach at Lincoln Lane Community College for the esports program, the varsity esports program. And then I was the assistant coach at St. Ambrose University for their FGC team. And so around this time now, and I still am actually, I transitioned to one of the head TOs of Smash Brothers in the Midwest. So I actually go around running Smash tournaments in, I think I've been to 13 states now, running Smash tournaments. I was just in Wisconsin. I was in Ohio 3 weekends ago, Chicago right after that. And so I'm now coaching, and there's not a lot of LAN tournaments during quarantine, unfortunately. And so coaching is kind of like my main thing. And so I helped build I think it was we were back-to-back national champions for the National Junior College League, the NJCAE, for Rocket League. I'm not a big Rocket League guy, but I could coach it a little bit. And then worked on like that whole school aspect. So like I myself, it was actually kind of interesting. I never really was able to finish college, but now I'm helping people get to the next spot, right? I'm more of an educator myself. A month and a half ago, I've actually only been in this position for about a month and a half. I guess it was month and a half when I took the spot. I guess 6 months ago, I was working as a freelancer for Generation Esports, mainly dealing with amateurs. So I was kind of like a liaison between like the Smash Brothers community and the Rainbow Six community, and then this company here. And they transitioned me full time. So now I'm actually operating all of the collegiate tournament manager, like the collegiate tournament accounts. I'm the official collegiate tournament manager. And so those leagues that I used to play in, so the NJCAE, I now help run. Right. So I have over here, you can't see it, but I have about like 6 different leagues that I help manage and run. You're talking about my day to day. It's a lot of meetings. It's the whole office thing. But I meet with leagues. I create rule books. I manage day to day. I work with schools on turning their club sports into varsity programs. I help run tournaments themselves. So I travel. I still travel. Right, that's kind of my favorite thing as I go. And then lastly, you're talking about a couple of the hats that I do. I'm also the production manager and the production head at NECC, which is another collegiate league. That was something that I picked up over quarantine. This is what I'll say about esports is that there's going to be a lot of projects and stuff and a lot of teams and things like that. Always have your eggs in multiple baskets because you never know what's going to be really successful for you. And so I'm the production manager over there. I handle a team of about 80 casters, producers, and observers for, I think we do about 40 hours of, I think it might be 60. We do 60 hours of production a week over 2 streams, and so I manage a team that does that. So I have all of the hirings, all of the like talent acquisition, and then day-to-day management over there. So a few different things. You're talking about hats, yeah, a little bit. But that's kind of like my whole run through esports. I'm 23 now, so I'm a little bit. I'm an old guy in the community now because everybody's super young in the esports space.
Let me know when they start calling you an esports boomer.
I do. I get it. When I was coaching, it was the worst thing. Some of my students were older than me, and I was still the boomer because I was the person in charge.
All right, I guess I'll take it in a different light then, if that's the case. But
yeah, it's always funny. But yeah, that's kind of like my entire thing. I don't know if that's kind of interesting for you guys.
Yeah. Karen, what's your question? No question. No. We'll come back to you. I guess.
Would you do this forever?
What?
Would you do esports forever?
Would you like to do this forever?
I thought about that. That's kind of an interesting question. Maybe. That sounds fun. Esports has a lot of I think grind culture is kind of the thing with it. You talk about like hustle culture in a lot of spaces. You have to work, you have to do all this sort of stuff just to get a little bit ahead. That sort of part of the esports thing, I'm a little bit over. I'm working a salary position now, so it's a little bit different that I don't have to work constantly. But before taking this job, when I was saying I was working paycheck to paycheck, that is putting in 40 hours a week just to kind of like keep afloat, and I don't want to do that forever, for sure. I think I think it's more of these managerial, there's more of these like jobs that can help guide the collegiate space and work on my big thing is like collegiate pipeline. Like how do we get students into jobs from middle school, right? Like where going through esports the entire time. I would love to. I think that'd be actually really good. It's not too much physical exertion at times, although I would tell you, CRTs weigh a lot more than you think. And when I used to run Melee, we'd have to lug CRTs up 4 flights of stairs, and you get a little bit buff off that one. But yeah, as long as I can, for sure.
You're talking to me when we would have QuakeCon in Chicago.
Oh yeah.
And you would need 2 to 3 cars just for CRT monitors alone. So
yep.
Kyron, you got another one?
Are you good at Smash?
Are you good
at Smash?
Yeah. Are you good at
I was power ranked. I was PR'd in Springfield, Illinois. My old scene was the Great River Valley, so that would have been like everywhere from Davenport, Iowa to Champaign, Illinois. So it's like western central Illinois. And so when you go to Smash tournaments, I was going about 3 to 4 a week for a while and running most of them. You have to get kind of good at some point. I mean, you're playing it a lot. I'm not the best for sure because I don't spend a lot of time playing in comparison to running it. But yeah, I'm not bad. I'll beat most people.
Yeah. Humble.
Humble. No. I'll tell you. I've been to a lot of Smash events with people, and I don't do that bad. I don't know.
Is it okay if you could tell us it's sort of like your main or something like that? Yeah, I'm Smash main.
Oh, my Smash main?
Yep.
Yeah. So I've been playing Bowser. I was a Bowser main for a long time. Sword came out, and I was playing him for about 6 months. I'm still off and on between the characters, but that's kind of like my dual mains right now. And then Smash 4, when I was playing that, because I played that competitively, I know, awful, but I was a Donkey Kong main.
I've been spamming DK and Kirby against these guys for the last 3 weeks.
Just recently, I've been maining for my main ones. I've been doing Ike Inkling and I've been doing Ike Inkling and then Joker too.
Oh heck yeah! Do you watch a lot of competitive players then?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
MKLeo occasionally.
So I mean, and just to kind of I guess not transition, but to kind of pull from that. The one day, like I totally scrapped my lesson in here because they were just teaching each other like different characters, like showing them different videos and combos, and then we just threw up the switch and just let them just essentially teach each other.
Yeah.
And to me, it's one of the interesting things with this. Here's a question as far as day to day. Now I know you're doing tournament management and operations. How much of that is working with, say, venues and other staff as well? And I guess what are usually some of the barriers for even being able to host something that you're putting on?
Okay, yeah. So my current job here at Generation Esports, my ability to do lands is like, I can't. We have some stuff in the background that is happening, so I can't talk about too much of it. But I haven't been able to run a lot of lanes through here. Outside of that, my more freelancing, because my main gig at bigger events and like lanes in general is the head floor TO. So what I will do is I'll typically manage a staff of volunteers or bracket managers, and then kind of make sure that everybody's on pace. The difficulties that kind of get run into. Venues is actually one that people have a lot of issues with. I myself have not had too many problems with securing venues, but it is kind of a hurdle. So there was a space, I worked for the NACC. We ran a LAN would have been last year, just a hometown series in Davenport, Iowa. And so we had 30 odd colleges and high schools come out to compete. And that venue itself was $40,000 for a day, one day. And we had it for 2. So, and this is a huge casino venue, right? But when you get like these large venues, you start getting like staging. You talk about lights, professional camera work. I have to, when we're doing esports, you have to have a whole production team outside of it. So I have a background. I used to do concert management. So I hosted shows, and then I ran my own music festival for a little bit. In comparison, like you need sound techs, you need X, Y, and Z for music shows. This is on top of that, all of the streaming. So it's a lot more intensive cost-wise and personnel-wise for getting those off the ground and running properly. You don't necessarily need that much because I'm looking at my level of events. I work with large production teams. I work with large staffing teams. I'm running, $100,000 prize pool events. That's not everybody, right? And so when you're first starting off, getting these sort of venues can be a little bit easier, right? So there's like school cafeterias, right? There's your local church basement. There's a lot of opportunities to look for spaces. And through that, the costs that are put onto you, if you are looking to try to get into tournament management or just running events in general, a lot of it's just going to be on you to do the work, right? If somebody needs to do the advertising, if you need to like make posters, you need to post posters around town. You need to post on Facebook about the event. You need to go talk to people. You need to run the tournaments themselves, right? The physical brackets or commentating things. Every person in my position that I've worked with can do it all, at least at a bare degree. And so I would very much encourage you to do as much as you can by yourself as possible, at least to get your get your toes wet into it, because you're going to need to know how to do it. That was a mistake that I made really early on. I relied on a lot of people to do these very core, essential parts of event management. And I didn't learn them. And so when it came that I was no longer working with people, or maybe I didn't have those people available, I had to do everything by myself. And learning on the fly after there's some certain expectations of event quality put onto you is not always the most fun. So it's kind of like the learning process. It's a little bit steep at times, right? Like, do you know how to properly set up a switch, for instance, right? That's like the core thing. Do you know how to set up an OBS scene? Are you familiar with like a sound system, right? Have you ever run a soundboard before? All that stuff is really important skills to learn. And they also translate. Sorry, go ahead.
Because I'm going to ask this question because when you say Switch, are you talking Nintendo Switch or networking Switch?
I was talking Nintendo Switch, but a networking Switch is also really important to learn how to use as well. You get into those. It's like I never thought about this when I was getting into esports. You're able to do a lot more than just esports because there's IT work. I think it's really interesting that you're tying IT with esports because they're so closely intertwined. There's a lot of IT work involved. There's a lot of like cable management. You have to make an event look nice, so you need to know how to put the cables down correctly, right? How to tape them down. I've never heard gaffing tape was something I never heard of beforehand. And it's something that you learn because it's an electrician's tool, but it's essentially like black tape that has the middle part doesn't have any stickiness in it, so you can put cables in between. And it's a very expensive tape. That's something I would never learn about if I didn't get into esports, which is really interesting because it's not even a very well-known thing. But that's the kind of the skills and information that you sort of pick up. I can now manage an entire team, whether it's in an office setting or if it's on a fairgrounds, right? I can do X, Y, and Z because I've learned all of these skills through esports itself. And it's not necessarily, you just pick up things. People talk about hard and soft skills a lot, and esports gives you all of it. You just have to keep an open mind when you're doing work and not be afraid to learn something yourself, even when it's a little daunting. I don't know if you guys build PCs or have built a computer before from scratch. But to me, that was something that was very daunting for a long time. I picked up a job where I was working as a sales clerk for a computer store, and you get over it really quick, but it was a little bit of a hurdle. Like for the longest time, I was like, I got anxiety thinking about a PC. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about building it. And then you learn, and then you can pick up those skills. It's really important. Anything that gives you a little bit of anxiety for like learning and stuff, I would definitely kind of jump into. Like learning these new skills are super important, especially with esports. I think he's had his hand up a little bit.
Okay. So this is kind of an accessibility question.
Yeah.
What kind of advice do you have if somebody doesn't have access to equipment?
So this is something I've learned is you're never going to have everything yourself, at least for a long time. I for sure didn't. And so working with people is the best option. If you're talking about PCs themselves, when you're running like LAN events, get 6 buddies that have computers accessible to them, or work with a local computers lab to get any equipment that you have. And if you can't get access to the equipment at all, transition with what you're running. Say, okay, I can't get PCs. It's not reasonable for me to do so right now. There's no local LAN centers. There's no access to them. Let's instead try to either do online events if that's something that you want to do. If you're really committed to like running CS:GO or Valorant or League of Legends, you're really committed to running those tournaments. That's kind of like where you're gonna have to be at. You kind of cut your teeth on online events, or you use what you can to run events that you can't. So like we're talking about Nintendo Switches. If you want to run some Smash tournaments, asking people to bring their own. That's actually really common in the community. Same thing if you want to do FIFA or NBA 2K or Madden, trying to get people to bring their own equipment. That is a problem for some of these spaces where people just do not have access to equipment. I would always go towards reaching out to the community that's around, saying, "Hey, I'm going to bring this. I would love to put this on. I'll do all the work for it, but I need some help getting some equipment with it." Yeah, it's not the most elegant solution. I'll admit that one, because it is relying on other people to make sure that your stuff fires. But once you kind of get understanding of what equipment is accessible to you in the space, like in your area, you can kind of work with what you have for the time being until you can really invest into it. Like I took me a bit. Finally got some money that I was able to invest in some more monitors and things, and that seems to be a really good pickup because people don't like, this is a secret, people don't like bringing their monitors places. I mean, you guys, monitors are very expensive, like computer monitors, and so but they're okay bringing their consoles for the most part, provided that stuff's there. So if you invest into more of these like to the infrastructure around the monitors, so like if you invest in the infrastructure around the consoles, so like the monitors and your extra cords and maybe the controllers and things, and get people to just bring as little as possible, so just their setups, just their PlayStations and Xboxes and things, that's like a good way. You have to try and make it as easy as possible for people to kind of like bring their equipment. That's something I've learned.
And you don't necessarily have to worry about some of that then technology phasing out. So like if the new gen consoles come out, that's not your problem. You have all the monitors that should still adapt to the other consoles and stuff. I didn't think of that perspective, but that's a good idea.
If you're going to be doing something in esports, get monitors first. They never phase out, and they're always a worthwhile investment. I would say though, get padding. I used to do this. So I was renting out monitors for a while. I had, and it was working with people on getting donation of monitors and things to be able to have this. But at a time that I had 15 monitors, I think it might have been 18, like computer monitors, and these like 24-inch monitors that I bring to tournaments, and I'd actually rent them out a bit. And so what I do is I fill up a single trunk. This is like a 4-door, like, I don't know, like a Toyota Camry. Yeah, like a very small, it's a small car. It's just a four-door car, nothing big, not Explorer or anything like that. And I'd use the small trunk there and fit all of them in. You'd stack them on top of each other. So the trick to do is pad it. So as long as you have like a blanket on a monitor and you can put another monitor on top of it, and generally speaking, the weight isn't enough to crack screens and things. And so I went to, that was like my entire like 2019 was traveling around, renting out my services with this equipment, and then I'd all just put it to a trunk. So it was always funny. We show up like a clown car, unpacking all of these monitors just onto like any street nearby. But it really is a good investment. It really is a good investment to get those monitors and things. One of them breaks, but hopefully at the time, like I was renting equipment, so hopefully you'll be able to make enough to recoup just a monitor cost. but people have problems getting equipment. That's the thing. You kind of mentioned about like equipment in general. People just do not have infrastructure most of the time. So if you yourself are able to get that infrastructure and be able to bring it to other people running events, that is such a good help, for instance, in helping other people is really good in esports. And then because if you scratch someone's back, they're always going to be coming around and helping you as well. It's good. It's a really nice and welcoming community in that space, or in that sense. But also allows you to kind of get your name out there. That's another thing that's really important. I'm not sure if people have kind of touched on that. Touched on like image creation and pushing a brand in esports. But that's how you make it. It really is.
Any other questions? Okay. I've put this group through the ringer today. We've had 2.5 hours of these, and they've been incredibly patient. And I don't want, like, I want to value your time too. So
no, you're good. Thanks so much for inviting me. It was awesome to talk to you guys. I always love talking about my path because it's like non-traditional. I always push people to go through school and stuff. Like that's really important. It worked out for me. But I would say always experiment. That's the big thing. Always try things. Because you have enough time.
And it's something that we've talked about kind of throughout this whole process today. We have people that are still involved in this space, whether it's your now full-time position. We just talked to Trippin, a caster, who does it in his spare time. It's his side hustle, basically. We've talked to people that like did the traditional 4-year route to get all the way up. So it's like, it's just been great to hear everybody's perspective that there's no just one right way to get in here. So I think it's awesome that you shared your non-traditional approach, because it's still a way. This is an industry that doesn't necessarily have that you must have X, Y, and Z degrees or whatever it may be in place in order to break into it. So I think it's good perspective.
Heck yeah. And I guess my parting message would be to get involved. If you're interested in getting esports at all, is get involved with your local communities, right? You guys play Smash Brothers. You probably have a local Smash scene that would love to have more players in it. If you're interested in getting more management or tournament organizer experience, some people get that itch pretty early on. Kind of put yourself out there. I would help out the people that are already doing things in your space to kind of get those skills yourself. And then once you have the ability and the knowledge to move on and create your own things, do it. That's like the best thing. I grew up in a space where I had to teach myself everything, right? I had to work with people who were all learning on the fly. And you guys now have the infrastructure built and the people around you, like your teacher here, of course, who has this knowledge to be able to learn from our mistakes and to do some even cooler stuff than we're able to. So yeah, good luck in your guys' esports journey.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, take care, Mike. Thank you so much for having me.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Now we're done.